Aloha everyone. The following clip is a small clip, and I apologize for the quality not being the best or it being very brief, but I did not have my camera. In fact, I lost my camera, long story, about a month and a half ago. But at least you can see something and not nothing, which is good news, I guess. Anyway, it's a short clip of a little encounter I had with a rather large tiger shark, and you'll barely see it in the video. I'll put it in slow motion so you can kind of see a glimpse of it. But anyway, I was diving with some buddies off the boat, and so I did not have my kayak, and so I had to use regular lifeguard float, orange float, as many of you are familiar with, and tag up my fish to that float or use a kuhi, like normal process. And so that's what I did, and as I was diving I had about 6 or 7 fish on there, including a couple rather large whiptail uhus or parrotfish. Luckily, when I was diving around the boat, I dove a little bit up current of the boat. That way when I'm heading back, I just drift back to the boat. And so that's what I was actually doing, because I had quite a few fish. I was drifting right back to the boat. It wasn't too far when I was just drifting in about 25 feet of water when I felt a rather heavy pull. I turned around and there was this extremely huge tiger shark going to town on my float, eating some of my fish or just shaking like crazy, whatnot. Once it had a good grip, it tried to pull the float out to sea or swim away with it, and out of sheer reflex I held on to my line, because it was connected to my gun anyway, and I didn't want to lose my gun, and I didn't know what to do really, so I just held on, and the shark started to tow me out to sea, or it just started to tow me, not really out to the deep, but just pull. And so I was being pulled for a good, I don't know, 8 or 9 seconds. As I was being pulled, I was thinking to myself, wow, is this really happening? I know some people, see tiger sharks all the time, doesn't make a big deal to them or anything like that, but this is my first time I've actually seen one in the water, and to encounter it in this fashion was rather surprising, but for some reason I kept my cool. And so as it was pulling me, it eventually gave way, and I thought, okay, maybe he ripped off or broke off my float or something like that. So I pulled in my line, and surprisingly my float was still attached, and half of my fish was still on there, so he didn't break off the kuhi either. But as that happened, I noticed he was coming right back, and so the float was about maybe 10-15 feet away from me. He's coming back. I'm like, oh, I don't really want to go through that again, and I don't want to lose my float. So I guess right when he was about to bite it again, I decided not to let him do that, so I pulled it away from him, and he missed. But then the float was only like 5 feet away from me, and then here comes the shark again, and he's gonna try that again. So I was like, okay, well, let's see what happens. And he came up to the float again, and the float's pretty much right in front of me, and he tried to bite it. I pulled it away, and then I got my gun and I jabbed him right in the face, and he didn't like it. He didn't swim away right away, but he kind of just sat there and kind of shook his head a little, but he just sat there. He stopped, but he sat there in front of me. Then what I usually do with other reef sharks is I kind of do a real heavy thud in the water, kind of slap the water, heavy deep thud. And I was like, well, I might as well try this. He's already in front of me, I'm already ready in case he, I don't know, comes at me. So that's what I did. I did a couple big thuds, and it actually worked. He didn't like that, and he kind of swam away a little bit, about 10-15 feet away. And so when that happened, I started backpedaling towards the boat, because I was drifting with the current. But he came right back, and he tried again, so I had to poke him and do a couple more thuds, and I followed that process 2 to 3 times. So every time he came back, I had to kind of jab him in the face and thud the water, really make noise, irritate him, poke him, and it actually worked until I came up to my partner, which was after about 3 or 4 times he came back at me, and then finally he kind of gave up, swam away. He did his last little roundabout and then just swam out to the deep. So that's what happened, and I had my friend swim in both of our floats, and I kind of guarded them as we went back to the boat, but that was it. The tiger shark was, I mean, in my opinion, very huge. I mean, I've seen big Galapagos sharks, big sandbar sharks that were like maybe 6, 7, 8 feet. But this guy was extremely big. He had remoras under his chin. He had scars on the back of his, towards his back side of his body. And I got right up close and personal. I mean, and every time he came at me, all I could see is this big square catfish head just heading at me, which was kind of crazy. But it didn't sink in later, until later, and how kind of nuts this was. But I mean, at the moment, it was kept my cool. But enjoy the clip, and that's it.
Fucking big tiger! Fucking big tiger!